In the heart of New York, a woman walking to her third job stops to help a stranger collapsed on the sidewalk. She doesn't know his name, she doesn't ask for anything. But in saving him, she saves herself and unlocks a story the world was never meant to see. This isn't fate, this is grace. And she had no idea. He was watching her long before he ever felt. It was raining, that kind of cold rain that never shows up in the forecast, needle thin, silent, persistent. The kind that makes the city seem grayer than it already is. She walked fast, head down, long blonde hair damp and sticking to the sides of her coat. Her name was Emily Hart. She lived in a fifth-floor walk-up in the Bronx, worked mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons at a bookstore, and nights cleaning an office lobby on Madison Avenue. She was used to invisible days, just one step ahead of the rent, 3 steps behind her dreams. On this day, she was late. Her sneakers slapped the wet pavement as she crossed 58th Street. Traffic honked, lights blinked. She didn't look up until she saw him, a man, slumped against the side of a building, one hand limp over his lapel. People passed him like they passed garbage bags or puddles. No one slowed. No one turned. Emily did. She stopped cold. Her heart ticked up, but not out of fear, out of instinct. He wasn't homeless. His coat was too expensive, his watch barely visible under the cuff screamed old money, but his face pale, clammy, his lips tinged with blue. Something was very wrong. She knelt. No words, just motion. Her trembling hands pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Faint pulse, shallow breathing. He was slipping. Without thinking, she grabbed her phone and called for help. Then, she took off her coat, bundled it under his head, and stayed. The rain didn't stop. Her hair soaked through, the world blurred. But she didn't move. Paramedics arrived 5 minutes later. 5 minutes that felt like forever. They loaded him into the ambulance. One asked her name. She gave it and walked away before they could ask anything more. That was supposed to be it. One moment, one gesture, a woman who gave when no one else did. She didn't know that inside that ambulance, the man Nicholas Caldwell was regaining consciousness, whispering one name to the nth before he slipped back into the dark. Emily. How could he have known? He shouldn't have. But he did, not from that moment, from one before, one she didn't even remember. Nicholas Caldwell woke up in a hospital bed with a white band around his wrist and a needle taped to his vein. Machines beat steadily around him. It was quiet, sterile, expensive. He tried to sit up. His chest ached, his throat burned. He remembered the fall, the pain between his ribs, the way the world spun sideways as he stumbled down the street, one step ahead of a boardroom implosion. But mostly, he remembered her. She hadn't said anything. Not really. No questions. No hesitation. Just a hand on his arm and calm in the chaos. He asked the nurse her name. They had it on the report. Emily Hart. Left before giving contact information. No address, no number, just her name and a worn coat that still smelled faintly of lavender and rain. Nicholas wasn't just any man. He was the heir to Caldwell Holdings, an empire his grandfather built and his father nearly destroyed. Private schools, yachts, tabloids. He had lived a life lined with gold. But what no one knew, what even his board didn't know, was that Nicholas had walked away from all of it just before that collapse, quietly, purposefully. He'd been watching people walking through his own city without security, without credit cards, without name or title. He wanted to know who people really were when the money was gone, and what kind of man he might become without it. Emily was the only one who had seen him at his lowest, and reached in any way. She didn't know who he was, she didn't care. And something about that shook him deeper than the diagnosis the doctors gave him. Exhaustion, stress-induced arrhythmia, and acute loneliness. He left the hospital that evening, against the doctor's advice, slipped out under his assistant's nose, ditching the black car waiting outside. Instead, he walked, carefully, slowly, back to where he fell, 58th Street. It was just concrete now. No trace of the moment that had rerouted the current of his life. But he remembered her eyes. Pale green, focused, human. The next day, he hired a private investigator, discreet, thorough. He didn't want her tracked or watched, he just wanted to find her. She wasn't on social media. No photos, no tags, no noise, just her name on a coffee shop roster, a bookstore employee directory, a payroll ledger from a cleaning service. Her life was written in the quiet places no one looked. Nicholas read every line, every shift she worked, every street she walked. He didn't know why he was drawn to her. Only that something about her kindness had pierced the shield of money and artifice he'd lived behind. She had nothing and gave everything, and he had everything and was empty. He started going to the bookstore, not to talk to her, just to see Once, then again, and again, each time, hidden behind a coat and scarf, he watched her shelve books and help tired parents and tuck candy into the pockets of children without lunch. It was her laugh that undid him. Soft, unaware anyone was listening, he didn't speak, didn't approach, he couldn't, not yet. She'd saved him once, but he wasn't ready to meet her until he could be worthy of that. So, he waited, and she went on, never knowing that the stranger she saved on the street wasn't just anyone. He was a billionaire. And he had already decided she was the one. The bookstore on East 74th was small, its windows fogged in winter, its walls crammed with used titles and whispered conversations. Emily worked Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, always early. Always with a paper cup of coffee from the place to blocks over black. No sugar. Nicholas knew her schedule before she ever knew his name. He came every Thursday, never spoke, never stood too close, just browsed the travel section near the back and watched her move between the aisles like a note in a melody only she could hear. She never saw him. Or if she did, she never looked twice. To her, he was just another man in a wool coat with a stack of unread books. But to Nicholas, she was the reason he got up at 6 a.m. again. The reason he felt his pulse beat steady when everything else had threatened to come undone. He wasn't in love. Not yet. He didn't believe in that kind of magic. But he believed in truth, and something about Emily was undeniably real. Every moment she gave without being watched, without asking. That was rare in his world. Inherited wealth had taught him how easily people became actors in rooms filled with money. But she never even looked for a stage. One Saturday, he stayed longer. Emily was helping a boy find a book about dragons. She knelt beside him, scanning the shelves, until she found one with a red spine and a folded corner. The child lit up. Emily smiled. Nicholas felt his chest ache, not the kind that required medicine, but the kind he hadn't felt in years. He left before she saw him. He always did. That night, he walked Central Park alone. The city lights blinked behind leafless trees. Somewhere nearby, jazz floated out of a rooftop bar. He thought of what it would take to speak to her. To explain. To tell her the truth that the man she saved wasn't a nobody, but the last son of a crumbling dynasty. A man carrying a name he didn't want and a future he couldn't fix. But what could he offer her? She lived simply, earnestly. What would she save? She found out he owned the building her bookstore rented from. That her rent hadn't been raised in 3 years because he told his property team to leave it alone. Would she call it fate? Would she call it control? Would she walk away? He didn't want to risk it. So he stayed behind the glass, the man with too much to give and too little to say. Emily, meanwhile, lived unaware of the eyes that followed gently behind. Her days were the same: wake, work, walk, sleep. She didn't believe in miracles anymore. Not after what she'd lost, her mother, her fiancé. A future she once planned in color, but lately she'd felt something shift. A sense that she was being carried forward, gently, by something larger than her circumstances. Her steps were lighter, her breath deeper. She still struggled, still counted quarters for groceries, still scraped by on borrowed hours, but she'd started leaving the window open again, started smiling at the sky. As if someone, somewhere, was watching. Not in judgment, but in gratitude. Nicholas sat in a cafe across the street one Tuesday afternoon. Rain fell again, like it had that first day. He watched her press her forehead against the glass, watching the storm. Her reflection blurred against the shelves behind her, and something inside him broke quietly open. Tomorrow, he thought, tomorrow, I'll speak to her. But tomorrow would come with a twist no one could predict, one that would force Nicholas out of the shadows and straight into her life. It happened on a Thursday. The sky was flat and grey, the kind that promised snow but delivered something crueler: ice, slush, cold that bit bone. Nicholas had just stepped out of the cafe across the street from the bookstore. He wore a wool coat, scarf tight, gloves in his pocket. Inside, he clutched a small brown envelope. Inside it, a note. His name, his truth, a single confession, handwritten on thick stationery that still bore the faint imprint of his family's crest. He was going to give it to her. He was going to speak, but fate is never patient. And some stories don't wait for perfect moments. They write themselves in chaos. Smoke was the first thing he saw, not thick, not yet, but drifting upward from the alley behind the bookstore like a warning. Then came the sound, a faint crack, then a pop. He looked up. The corner of the building was glowing orange behind the second-floor window. Fire. In an instant, Nicholas dropped the envelope. Ran. No hesitation. No disguise, just instinct. Emily had been upstairs, organizing a box of rare books, when the fire alarm screeched. She thought it was a test. Then she smelled it: acrid, biting, unmistakable. Smoke filled the stairwell within seconds. The exit downstairs was blocked. She grabbed a soaked sweater from the donation box and wrapped it around her mouth. There was no panic in her, only clarity. This wasn't her first fire. She'd lost everything in another blaze 6 years ago. Her mother's home, her childhood, memories, her past. But this time, she wouldn't lose her future. She turned and kicked out the narrow window that overlooked the alley. The drop was too far. She coughed. Time slowed. Then she saw him. Below, looking up, a man with clear eyes and no hesitation. He didn't yell, didn't flail. Just held out his arms and motioned for her to jump. She hesitated only a second. Then she leapt. They hit the pavement hard, but alive. He took the worst of its arms out, bracing her fall. His back slammed against the concrete. Her hands trembled as she looked down at him, heart racing, lungs burning. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. Then her eyes widened. It was him. The man from the sidewalk. The one she'd saved. What are you doing here? She asked with her eyes, not her mouth. He didn't answer, not yet. But this time, he didn't walk away. The fire trucks came. The building was evacuated. People coughed and cried and held each other. Emily sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket, hands still shaking. Nicholas sat beside her. His coat was burned at the sleeve, ash clung to his hair, but his voice, when it finally came, was steady. He pulled a copy of the letter from his inside pocket, unfolded it. Held it out. She took it with cautious fingers. Inside, in neat, deliberate handwriting. Emily, I was the man you saved. My name is Nicholas Caldwell. You don't know me, but I've been watching the way you move through this world, not to intrude, but to understand something I never learned in all my years of privilege. You gave kindness when you had nothing to gain. And now I can't go another day pretending. I'm not meant to know you. If you don't want to see me again, I'll disappear. But if there's even a chance you feel this too, meet me tomorrow, same place, same hour, no more secrets. Nick. Emily read the letter twice, then once more. Her face gave away nothing, but inside, something was burning brighter than any fire, a truth she hadn't dared hope for. Not fate, not luck, but maybe, just maybe, a beginning. The next day, the city was quiet. The bookstore stood in blackened silence, cordoned off by tape and smoke-stained brick. Emily passed it once, slowly. The windows were boarded, the front door locked with a chain. Her hands lingered on the metal just long enough to say goodbye. Then she walked. No coat, just her sweater and scarf, her hair pulled back, face bare. She didn't know why she was going, only that she had to. He said same place, same hour, but Nicholas Caldwell wasn't waiting in the bookstore. He was on the rooftop across the street where he'd gone 100 times just to see her through the window. This time, he stood in full view, no coat, no disguise. He looked out over the city, not down. He didn't turn when he heard the rooftop door open. He already knew it was her. Emily stood in the doorway for a long moment, unsure of how close to get, unsure what to say. The letter still weighed heavy in her coat pocket. He turned slowly. No smile, just stillness, and then a breath. I didn't expect you to come, he said softly, his voice low, steady, carried by the wind. I didn't expect any of this, she replied. No small talk. No apologies. Just truth. Hanging in the cold between them. Nicholas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook, leather-bound, edges worn. He handed it to her. Inside, page after page, notes, sketches, details, her name written a dozen times. The first entry, she stopped. The second, she didn't ask who I was then. Why do I feel like I already know her? Emily flipped through slowly. Her breath caught at the line. She believes in people even when people forget to believe in her. She looked up. What is this? She asked. My truth, he answered. He didn't say it dramatically, didn't perform it like a confession. He said it like a man who had been hiding his whole life and was just now coming clean. I watched you, he said, not because I was curious but because I was empty. And somehow, you filled the space just by existing. Emily didn't flinch. She'd lived in a world of masks too long to be scared by honesty. I wasn't looking for anyone, she said. I was just surviving. Nicholas stepped closer. Just one step, and how? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past him, to the edge of the roof. Looked out over the city. The skyline stretched like a painting, cranes and spires and scaffolds of a world that never stood still. I don't know what this is, she said, still facing the wind. But for the first time in a long time, I don't want to run from it. He stepped beside her. Close, but not touching. She didn't look at him, but she didn't move away. And in that silence, something sacred passed between them. Not a promise. Not yet. But an understanding, a beginning. Later, they walked back down the stairs together. No fanfare, no flashing lights. Just two people who had found each other, not in perfection, but in imperfection, in survival. In grace, he offered to take her home. She declined, but her eyes softened. Tomorrow, she said. He nodded. Tomorrow. That night, Nicholas sat alone in his penthouse apartment for the first time in months. He didn't feel alone, he felt full. Across the city, Emily lit a candle by her window. No fire this time. Just light, soft, steady. Hope shaped. And for the first time since she lost everything, she smiled without needing a reason. Tomorrow was coming, and she wasn't afraid of it anymore. The next morning came quietly. No sunlight, just soft grey hovering over the city like a held breath. It was the kind of morning where nothing dramatic should happen, where lovers walk by without speaking, where lives turn gently instead of burning into legend. But this morning everything would change. Emily woke before her alarm. She didn't eat, didn't drink. She simply stood at her small mirror, brushing her hair back, her fingers trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. She wasn't nervous because she was meeting a billionaire. She was nervous because she wasn't meeting a stranger anymore. She was meeting someone who had seen her and somehow still wanted more. Across the city, Nicholas Caldwell stood in a private garden atop his building. A quiet place hidden behind hedges, unreachable by elevator unless you had the right key. He wore no tie, no watch, just a white shirt, sleeves rolled, hands folded. He'd cleared the space. No staff, no assistants, no photographers. Just one table, two chairs, and a letter in his pocket sealed, hand addressed. Emily Hart, private and personal. She arrived at noon, a simple black dress, her coat tied at the waist, no jewelry. She was quiet as the doorman let her through. The penthouse elevator opened to the garden rooftop, and for a moment, she stood there half in shadow, half in light. Nicholas turned. She stepped forward. No words. Just a nod. He led her to the table, pulled out her chair, then sat across from her. Between them, a silver tray, on it, the letter. She looked at it, then at him. What's in there? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Then finally, only if you say yes. Her brow furrowed. He slid it across the table. She opened it slowly. Inside, two things. First, a deed, small print, clean lines, signed. The building that housed her bookstore, now in her name. Second, a note. No letterhead, just pen on paper. You saved me once. Then, without knowing it, you saved me again. This isn't a gift. It's a thank you, not for what you did, but for who you are. If you want to walk away, this is yours. If you want to stay, then let's build something brick by brick, hand in hand. Not because of what I have, but because of what we could have together. She finished reading, then looked up. Tears didn't fall, but her eyes glistened with something more powerful than shock. Recognition. She didn't speak right away. Neither did he. The city moved around them, traffic, clouds, wind, but up here, time had stopped. Then softly, she pushed the deed back toward him. I'll take the second thing, she said. He blinked. What do you mean? She smiled, faint but sure. I don't want the building if it means walking away. I don't want your empire. I want your Tuesday mornings, your awkward silences. You're real. Nicholas breathed out. For the first time, he didn't feel like he owed anyone anything. She didn't need rescuing. She wasn't impressed by the skyline. She wanted him, and he had wanted her from the moment she knelt in the rain that night. They walked the streets again. Same corner, same place he once fell, but this time, no collapse, only a hand in his. Light, strong, real. The world had changed, not because they found love, but because they finally chose to believe in it. No fanfare. No headlines, just her hearts beating in time, and one final truth whispered into the air, faceless and eternal. She thought she saved a stranger, but he knew the truth all along. She had saved his soul, and without knowing it, he had been looking for her his entire life.